And welcome everyone to, what is this, day 4? Day 4 of my live virtual book tour for The Reckoning. If you guys don't already know, my name is Kayla Canoe. I'm an author, YouTuber, gamer, and aerialist. And my adult dark fantasy debut novel, The Reckoning, is releasing in like 4 days? In 4 days. On my birthday, April 14th. It's happening. It's coming. It's here. And for today's event, I'm going to be doing a live reading of Chapter 2. So if you missed Chapter 1, which I read yesterday, all of the previous links for the book tour are linked below. I made a playlist for it so you guys can check it out. You can see the past events, and then you can also see when all the future events are going to be. Basically, I'm going to be here live every day until the book launches, and then a couple days after, because this is like release week, guys. We're going into release week. I got my book here. I got a bookmark today, so like bookmarked it. But I'm going to be reading from the book. We're going to read Chapter 2, and welcome everyone who's joining. Hi, Blue. I am going to put the content warnings in the chat again because everyone wants to know about the content warnings. I got my lovely cat ears today because I like wearing various ears for fun. So, content warnings before I read anything. We have beatings, blood and gore, death, murder, physical violence, psychological abuse, rape, sex, explicit rape, sexual violence, trauma, and victim blaming. I think I spelled those right. So those are some content warnings for my book. I think today's chapter is a little bit more tame than yesterday's chapter. So there's that. It is going to be from Harrison's perspective. I got content warnings pinned in the chat. So if anyone jumps in, they will know what is happening. And I'm going to get my banner up so that people know what's going down today. Boom. The Reckoning Book Tour Day 4, reading Chapter 2. That is what's happening. I'm so excited. I don't know that I have any announcements aside from everything is linked below. Ebook pre-orders are up. The book will be available in paperback and hardback come release day, provided the computers and internet don't fail me. They're up there and they're ready to go. So they should show up on Amazon. That's the thing. Anyway, we'll see. Internet's dying. I don't know if you guys saw any buffering on your end, but it buffered on my end. Anyway, links below. You can also, if you want to support me, you can vote for The Reckoning. I submitted it to a little competition. So you can vote for that below in the links as well. What else is down there? My newsletter. Guys, if you want to know what's coming, when it's coming, if you love The Reckoning, if you've read The Reckoning, or you're reading The Reckoning, and you're like, man, I wonder when the next one's coming, sign up for my newsletter. Basically, that's my go-to, guys. If you want to know what's happening, when it's happening, get on that newsletter. I'm going to be finishing the series over the next 4 or 5 years, and there's going to be 7 books. So be prepared for things to all crazy so yeah, that's what we got. Content warnings have been said. Content warnings are pinned in the chat. And we are just going to jump right into it. because it's time. It's time to read chapter 2 of The Reckoning. It's a little dark out today, so it's a little darker. We got a mood vibe going. Got my Reckoning bookmark, guys. Boom. It's upside down, sorry. Love it so much. I love my logo. You guys know this. I'll show you. A little sneak peek on the inside. Boom. Harrison title page. And I love these little guys at the end of the chapter. It's my religion symbol if you guys didn't see that in previous videos. All right, chapter 2. Harrison. It was a truly beautiful day. Summer had ended, but cool fall weather still lingered. The trees surrounding the palace had changed color, and their leaves scattered the grounds. It was my favorite time of year. I wanted to enjoy every moment of it before the harsh cold of winter came. Daniel was finally back from his training with the Dark Nation Army. Since his father was the field marshal, the head of the military, he was expected to attend every single boot camp. I had missed his company and was eager to show him how much my magic had grown in his absence. We stood in the open training field near the palace gardens. Daniel had agreed to my request for a duel after Kai's abrupt departure. Daniel never passed on a chance to fight. It wasn't in his nature. He loved showing off his strength, as most Taloks did. Are you ready? Daniel asked from across the small field. A gentle breeze made his long white hair dance about his shoulders. Braids, feathers, and decorative beads were mixed between the coarse rolls of his hair. His light green skin glistened in the sunlight, which only emphasized the thickness of his muscles. Every inch of his bare upper body was defined. His arms, shoulders, chest, and those abs. I'd kill for those abs. Yes, let's do this. I clenched my fists in anticipation. We both bowed to signal the start of our duel. Daniel had the upper hand when it came to physical strength, so I knew to keep my distance from him. As Daniel moved, I mirrored his steps. Our leather boots matted the grass as we walked circles in the field. We gathered dark energy around us as we moved. My veins tingled with electricity that felt like a million tiny lightning strikes happening simultaneously under my skin. I fought to keep the flow of electricity under control as dark magic radiated from my hands, surrounding me with its dark aura. Your aura has grown, Daniel said, but mine is still stronger. Energy surged around Daniel as he summoned his dark magic. I watched as the black, crackling energy accumulated in his hands and expanded to encompass his entire body. The cloud of dark magic danced wild, ready to strike. Are you sure about that? I replied. My hands tingled from the dark magic that wanted to rupture them, but I showed no signs of it. I forced my aura to stretch a little further. I put even more strain on my hands, but I didn't care. I would fight through the pain. The best strategy for any duel was to let your opponent attack first, and we both knew it. I managed to keep my distance as we circled, but Daniel got impatient and made the first move. A move I'd seen him do a million times before. His hands circled in front of him, forming a solid ball of dark magic. He thrust it straight at me. It whipped past my face with a zipping sound as I barely dodged it. The nearness of it shook my concentration, but I still managed to send a bolt of dark magic at Daniel. It ricocheted off his shoulder and a thin line of red appeared. My bolt had cut through his dark aura. He laughed as he noticed the small drop of blood that trickled down his arm. Looks like your power has grown after all. I'll have to stop going easy on you, he smirked, launching a ball of dark energy at me. Ha! You never go easy on me, I replied, and quickly circled my hands to make a solid shield of dark magic to block it. The ball of energy broke as it hit my shield, and I prepared to return fire. But another ball was already coming at me. Hit after hit, my shield blocked the attacks, but I could feel the dark magic weakening. My hands ached from the dark energy that flowed through them to keep the shield up. It would break soon. I released the shield from my hands and thrust it forward. It knocked balls of energy away from me and provided cover for my attack. I shot another bolt of dark magic at Daniel, but my stamina was depleted. The electricity ripped through me as it left my hand. My palms split open and blood flowed down my fingers. Daniel dodged the attack and ran straight at me. I continued fire as I moved backward, ignoring the burning in my hands. If he got within melee range, I would be done for. He dashed side to side as he cleared the distance across the field. My attacks missed. I was unprepared for his speed. He had never been so agile in the past. My hands were bloodied and I needed to reposition. I turned to run after I sent a final bolt barreling toward him. It missed, but it served as a distraction for me to get away from him. He was fewer than 20 yards away from me when the ground rippled beneath my feet. As hard as I tried to keep my footing, I was lost in the wave of dirt that pulled out from under me. "Got ya," Daniel shouted as he threw himself on top of me. I was pinned face down to the ground beneath the weight of his body. It was over. There was no way I'd be able to escape his grasp. He had won. "You cheated," I mumbled through the dirt. My face was nearly smothered in it. Daniel lifted slightly and rolled me onto my back. His hair danced in the air around my head as he hovered over me. The beads shimmered in the sun. "I always do, according to you," he grinned. His hazel eyes stared down at me, and the flecks of pink within them began to glow. I don't think using my birth-given earth magic is cheating. It might be an unfair advantage, but you know fights are never fair." Daniel's smile was softer than I had remembered. As his eyes stared into mine, a warmth washed over me. I was filled with a familiar sense of safety that only he could inspire. "Don't I know it?" I replied. "No matter how hard I try, our fights always end up with you on top of me." The words escaped my lips before I could consider how they sounded. Heat burned in my cheeks as Daniel snickered, and I had no way to hide the redness of my face. "I did have to try harder for it this time, so you have improved," Daniel said. I thought he'd use his words to punish me for my slip of the tongue, but he didn't. He gave me an out, and I readily took it. "So have you," I replied. "I didn't know you could move that fast. It appears training with your father's army did you well." It was meant as a compliment, but the pink glow in his eyes faded. He abruptly pulled back, taking the warmth with him, and got to his feet. "I guess being the field marshal's son has its benefits." Daniel extended his hand to pull me to my feet. He didn't talk about his father much. I wanted to ask why, but I didn't want to push the subject. "I bet it doesn't have nearly as many benefits as being the Grand Duke's son," I said sarcastically as he pulled me up. He chuckled, and his shoulders relaxed. My blood streaked his hands, but he just wiped it off on his pants. "Yeah, I don't envy you one bit. Being forced to marry the princess is a hell I wouldn't wish on my greatest enemy," Daniel said as we began to walk back toward the palace. His usual demeanor returned. "She's not that bad," I replied. Jess was complicated and confusing, but she definitely wasn't comparable to hell. "Not that bad. She's been tormenting you for years," Daniel said. "I mean, she's been a little harsh, but I think she just doesn't want people to know that she has a good heart deep down." "A little harsh? I recall you crying for a solid week after she burned your favorite shirt out of spite. If she has a heart, it's at the end of a bottomless pit." "Let's not talk about Jess. I don't want to fight." Daniel had never liked Jess and always had bad things to say about her. He said he wanted to protect me, but I was tired of it all. Jess was the princess and my fiancé, and no one could change that. "Fine. We should head to the temple to pay our respects to the shamans anyway," Daniel said. I nodded in reply. It was always good to thank the gods and shamans after using large amounts of magical energy. We walked in silence as we crossed the palace grounds. The large black doors of the temple were wide open when we approached. Ancient runes inscribed in gold and silver lined the perimeter of the doors. The whole structure was fashioned from granite and was surrounded by large pillars that held up the roof. I'd always admired the intricate carvings and paintings that filled the holy spaces. The time and care required to create them could only be imagined. Pausing at the bottom of the granite stairs, we bowed before we entered the temple. Daniel insisted before we stepped foot on holy grounds. He was devout in his beliefs, and I admired him for it. The pink glow returned to Daniel's eyes when we entered. A powerful presence could be felt in the air around us. It tugged at the dormant energy within my veins. We stepped into the washroom and just inside the main doors and began to strip. Shelves lined one of the walls for clothes to be placed on. Even though there was ample room, Daniel always chose to use the shelf right next to mine. We stored our clothes away and stepped into the large bath in the middle of the room. It was customary to cleanse oneself before entering the sanctuary. The water was warm and soothed the ache in my hand, washing the blood away. Daniel was quiet. He never spoke inside the temple, at least not to me. Holy robes hung on hooks near the sanctuary entrance. Daniel and I put them on after we dried off. The washroom led directly into the sanctuary. I stayed back and let Daniel enter first. He preferred to pray without someone right next to him. So I waited a few minutes before I followed. Entering the sanctuary, my skin tingled from the energy that filled the circular room. 4 altars were placed in the middle, one for each shaman, and 3 shrines for the gods were located along the wall with equal distances between them. Daniel was in the center shrine communing with Sybil, the goddess of spirit. My worship started in the center of the room with the 4 shamans. To the north was the altar for Gaia. She was the first to be blessed with the gift of earth magic. I knelt before her idol and thanked her for her sacrifice. Then I prayed that she would continue to bless Daniel with the strength and protection of earth magic. I moved clockwise around the altars, thanking each shaman for their sacrifice. To the east was Ilmater, the first to be blessed with the gift of air magic. At the south was Vulcan, the first to be blessed with the gift of fire magic. Then lastly, at the west was Nerine, the first to be blessed with the gift of water magic. The magic of my era was a blessing, but from what I'd read in the history books, it started out as a curse, which was why I always thanked the shamans. They'd been horribly disfigured by the gifts of magic that they received, but the horrid forms of those with magic changed over the decades as our species evolved. Most beings now looked humanoid in origin, so we were blessed with the gift of magic without having a disfigured appearance. After thanking the shamans, I visited the shrines of the gods. I respectfully thanked Sybil and Apollo, the sun god, before I entered the shrine for Hecate, the moon goddess. As a dark magic user, I communed with Hecate the most. Her gift of the moonstone was what allowed me to use dark magic. I thanked the goddess and cut my palm with the alchemy that sat on her altar. My blood dripped into the bowl before me as an offering to my goddess. I used one of the silver strips of cloth in the basket on the floor to wrap my hand. It was an honor to bleed for the goddess, and I prayed she would continue to bless me with the gift of dark magic. I bowed before I left her shrine. Daniel had already left the sanctuary by the time I finished my prayers, so I went back to the washroom to change into my regular clothes. I headed outside and found Daniel sitting at the bottom of the steps. The muscles in his back were tensed up. It was strange to see because he was usually so relaxed after communing with the gods. "Hey, is everything all right?" I asked as I stepped off the last step. Daniel jumped up and turned to look at me. His eyes glowed pink. "There's something I have to tell you," he said. His face was flushed. If I hadn't known better, I would have thought Daniel was blushing, but that was impossible. He never blushed and was almost never serious, so I knew he was about to mess with me. "All right, so tell me then," I said with a smile in preparation for the joke I was about to hear. Daniel placed his hands on my shoulders and stared into my eyes before he spoke. "I love you," Daniel said. His grip on my shoulders was firm. I sighed, but before I could respond to what was clearly a poor joke, we were interrupted. "Harrison, there you are. I've been looking everywhere for you." Jess's voice echoed across the grounds. She stood at the rear entrance to the palace and wore one of her casual black dresses. "Jess, this isn't a good time," Daniel replied. I could hear his teeth grind as he spoke. "Nonsense. Harrison always has time for me," she smirked. Daniel released me and clenched his fists as his arms fell to his sides. I had never seen him get so upset about her presence before. "We're in the middle of an important discussion. Why don't you come back later?" Daniel replied. "Oh, please, you boys can talk later. Harrison and I need to go over wedding plans," she said. "Yeah, all right, I'm coming," I said. As I left, Daniel sighed. He must have been disappointed that I obeyed Jess, or maybe he really did have something important to discuss. Either way, he'd have to wait. I was obligated to put the princess first, even if I preferred Daniel's company. And that is the end of chapter 2. Harrison is much more of a lighthearted, innocent read than Kai's perspective. That's for sure. So I don't know how much you guys can see the difference in the perspectives there or not. But I love Harrison, little cinnamon roll character. Anyway, so that was chapter 2. I hope you guys liked it. Thank you, Blue. Let's see, I can show the comments. I can show comments. Blue says my book is beautiful. Thank you so much. And yeah, so God, I feel like I actually like read through it faster. So, funny little tidbit about me, I guess. We'll share this. I prefer shorter chapters. So I like to be able to read like a whole chapter in like a period of like an attainable period of time, because it's like, I don't know, I like having more breaks in the chapter sense, because it's like, I know some books will just have a lot of scene breaks, and it's like you can watch, like you can read one scene at a time, but I am like super OCD, so like I like to stop at a chapter. Like I can't stop mid-chapter. I can't just like be reading and then like when I need to go do something, like stop reading wherever I am. Like it has to be at the end of a chapter for me. So like I like shorter chapters because then like it's easier to manage like whether I have the time to read them. So I do have shorter chapters, I think, for The Reckoning. Chapter lengths are between, aside from the last chapter I think might actually be shorter, but I think they're somewhere between like 2,000 and 200 words. And I think the longest one might be a little over 4,000 words, but like most of them, like the like goal was like to be around 3,000 words for each chapter. Not that I had like a strict goal, but like that was kind of like my, is this chapter too short or too long kind of thing. But yeah, so that's the approximate length of my chapters. So you can read them in shorter periods of time, because I'm just not about that long chapter life, you know? And yeah, so yay, Blue, I'm excited that you're going to be here tomorrow. I should mention this. So the next stream is going to be tomorrow at, let me check the time so I don't tell you the wrong time, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I will be reading chapter 3 at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And guess what? It's from Tyler's perspective. So we're going to get another perspective. There are 3 perspectives in this book. They do not like alternate in like a specific pattern, but they do have like equal amounts of chapters for each perspective. So you'll get to hear about Tyler tomorrow. And I am excited about this, guys. I just can't even right now. Like I'm so, like it's crazy, right? Like I've been working on this for, it feels like for so long. Like it feels like for so long. And it's like, it's about to be out. And I'm like in the middle of writing the next book, or like rewriting the next book too. So it's like to go back and like read the first book while like writing the next couple books. I'm just like, God, it's a crazy life over here. Crazy life. But yeah, so that is all that I have for today. That is chapter 2. Like I said before, if you guys didn't see chapter 1 or any of the previous ones, they are linked in the playlist below. You can pre-order the ebook. Also linked below if you want the ebook. If you want a physical book, you're going to have to wait until release day, which is in 4 days on April 14th, which is also my 30th birthday, and I am super excited for it coming. And subscribe to my newsletter if you want to be in the know-how about all the books that I'm producing, because I'm producing books, guys. This is it. This is my life now. It's just going to be book after book after book after book, and I am here for it. I'm excited for it. I'll probably do some like fantasy magic symbol inspired merch at some point. So if you guys want to be in the know, subscribe to my newsletter. That is where all the information can be found for everything, because social media does not always show you the things that you want to be seen. And yeah, I think that's it. I think that's all that I have for today. And I hope to see all of you guys back here tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to read chapter 3. Thank you guys for being here with me. I love all of the love and support, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.